Hey YouTube, Freedom for Cash coming at you. Hey, I don't know if you caught the president's speech last night, but the link will be underneath if you want to watch it. But anyway, while watching it, I took some notes, and I'm going to review with you what I came up with as far as the speech goes. Now, what President Obama talked about was a decade of war. 7.5 years ago, he says, George Bush started the war against Iraq. Thousands of soldiers gave their lives, and thousands of soldiers were wounded. You know, the one thing he didn't talk about is the millions and millions of innocent people like Iraqis who were killed in the process, the men, women, and children who died needlessly because of this illegal war. And that's one thing that I didn't appreciate that he didn't say. He didn't say anything about those innocent people being killed in cold blood, just flat out killed. And that all took place in the first minute of the speech. At the 2 minute mark of the speech, Obama says he's proud of all the servicemen and women and that he is in awe of all of their service. You know, I don't think he's in awe of anything except for himself. He doesn't really care about this country. He's not an American. He wasn't born in this country, and he shouldn't be president. He's also a Muslim, and a lot of people got to figure out that that's what he is. You know, he claims to be a Christian. He's not a Christian. He is a Muslim, plain and simple. And where's his birth certificate at anyway? He's not an American, and he shouldn't be president. He also said that the mission has ended at the 2 minute and 50 second mark. The mission has not ended. This mission is far from being over. And I think every American knows that. At the 3 minute and 15 second mark, he starts to double talk about how he promised to bring the troops home in 18 months. The only reason why he said that was so he'd be elected president because he knew that the American people were so tired of this damn war that if he said anything about a resolution to the war, he would easily be elected president. And now look, that's exactly where he is. He's president now, and what has he done to this country? He's destroyed this country even more than where it was when he became president. at the at the 3 minute and 40 second mark, he says Iraqi has to own its own responsibility and defend itself. There is no way Iraq can defend itself. It's not really strong enough, and it doesn't have enough military power. Unless we're going to supply weapons to them, there's no way they're going to be able to defend themselves. At the 4 minute and 10 second mark, he talks about the credible elections that were held in that country and how they elected a president. Well, if I remember right, wasn't there some kind of big debacle with that election over there? Wasn't there some kind of underlying reason that they thought that the election had been rigged or fixed or something? I mean, think about it. We can't even have a good election here in America. How are they supposed to have a good election in Iraq? I mean, come on, are you serious? This is ridiculous. At the 4 minute and 30 second mark, Obama talks about how the Iraqi government, that is, should be just, representative, and accountable to its people. You know, I was very offended by this comment because, you know, the American government needs to be just, representative, and accountable to its people. How come the American government isn't accountable to its own people, but yet he talks about how Iraq should be accountable to their people? It's a bunch of crap. This whole speech was nothing but crap. At the 4 minute and 40 second mark, he talks about how the two countries should be friends now. Oh yeah, now that we kicked the hell out of Iraq, we should be friends. Oh great. At the 4 minute and 50 second mark, he talks about some of the troops staying in Iraq for a special purpose. The special purpose would be advising, assisting Iraq and security forces, supporting Iraqi troops and against counterterrorism, and protecting its civilians. Yeah, well, you knew all the troops weren't coming out, so there's your proof right there. At the 5 minute and 5 second mark, he talks about all the military troops will leave sometime next year. He doesn't give a specific date, but he says all the troops will be out next year. I find that very, very hard to believe. We're going to be there for a very, very, very long time. At the 5 minute and 20 second mark, he talks about the American civilians being in Iraq. He's concerned about the American civilians. Why? You weren't concerned about the Iraqi civilians when you killed them when they got in the way with the bullets and bombs. Well, what can you say about that? Now, this was a long stretch of the speech between the 5 minute and 40 second mark all the way to the 6 minute and 30 second mark, which was about 50 seconds. He talks about the mutual respect that each country has for each other, the mutual respect that America has for Iraq, and also in return the Iraq respect for the United States. I don't think they have any respect for us. I know that the Iraqi people are very, very upset that we killed their innocent brothers and sisters and mothers and fathers and children. I don't think there's any respect that goes back and forth there. At the 6 minute and 40-second mark, he talks about the price of the war in people, meaning our servicemen and women. That was the price that we paid. That was a dumb price. You didn't even talk about the civilians that were killed over there in Iraq, whatever. But we shouldn't even been there. This was an illegal war to begin with. Okay? It was an illegal war. We went there after 9/11. Okay? And that was one thing that surprised the heck out of me, is that, was I angry after 9/11 happened? Yeah, I was. Were my eyes open at that time? No, they weren't. And I wanted some action against Osama bin Laden, because that's, they said, oh, he was the one who did it. Okay? But I thought for sure we would go to Afghanistan, but no, we go to Iraq? Are you kidding me? That was crazy. At the 6 minute and 55-second mark, he says, Americans and Iraqis share beliefs in a new beginning for Iraq. I don't think American and Iraqis share beliefs in any way, shape, or form. So why are you saying this now, that we share beliefs? At the 7 minute and 20-second mark, he talks about it's time to turn the page on this Iraqi war. At the 7 minute and 45-second mark, he uses the word patriots. He says there were patriots who were for the war and patriots who were against the war. But now we are all united in the hopes for Iraqi's future. How does he know who's united in this country? He has no idea what goes on in this country. This whole entire speech just kind of made me very, very angry, because he was just using choice words that made absolutely no sense coming from the president of his nature. It was very upsetting. At the 8 minute and 15-second mark, he talks about fighting Al Qaeda and the American support for the Iraqi war, i.e., again, tied to 9/11. And again, I was shocked that we went into Iraq first. I thought for sure we were going to go to Afghanistan. And then when he talked about this, he talked about us being in Afghanistan for 10 years. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, because I thought we attacked Iraq first, and then it was a couple years later, then we went into Afghanistan. But please correct me if I'm wrong on that. And again, talking about fighting Al Qaeda, it seems as though there's some ties from Al Qaeda to the CIA. Everybody knows that. It just seems like Al Qaeda and the CIA work hand in hand with each other. So, I don't know. I just don't get that. At the 8 minute and 20-second mark, he talks about Afghanistan and not losing sight on that mission. And again, he ties the Afghanistan war with Al Qaeda. Now, at the 9 minute and 15-second mark, he talks about adding more troops to the Afghan war and also working with General Betrayus. General Betrayus. What a name. Betray Us. Interesting. Very interesting, I think. At the 9 minute 40-second mark, he talks about training the Afghan people and the troops of the Afghan people by next August, and them being able to take over for themselves. Honestly, I don't think that's going to happen. He's doing that in Iraq, and I think it's going to be a failing situation. Again, we will be in Afghanistan forever. From the 10 minute mark to 11 minute mark, it was pretty much all fill in, just a bunch of BS, very general conversation. It didn't make a whole lot of sense. Just kind of fit right in. At 11:05, he started with he talked about the people who want to move beyond the shackles of poverty and conflict and put their differences to terrorism and in other countries. Now, what that means is that he was talking about people in other countries outside the United States who want to move beyond their shackles and who want to move out of poverty and out of conflict and separate their differences from terrorism. Okay, well, why can't we do that here? Why does our government hold us back in shackles? And there are many, many people in this country that want to get out of their poverty-stricken situations, and they want to avoid the conflicts with their differences with each other. But you know what? The government holds so many people back, it's unbelievable. You know, if the government would just listen to its people, if the government would listen to us about the bailout, if the government would have listened to us about health care, we didn't want either one of those things, but yet the government crams it down our throat. And now who's going to end up paying the final price? We are. Look at the home mortgage situation. Freddie and Fannie. Okay, they got bailouts. And where did that money come? It came from the taxpayers. And the government, again, they won't listen to the American people. It's crazy. But yet you talk about shackles and moving out of poverty and conflict. Why don't we do that here in America before we do it somewhere else? Moving on, at the 11-minute and 30-second mark, he starts talking about America's prosperity and how he talks about the growing middle class and how the trillion-dollar deficit has harmed the middle class. But not only has it harmed the middle class, it's harmed every class together. It's harmed everybody as a whole. And that's the one thing that kills me, is that it's harmed everybody. At the 12-minute and 40-second mark, he compares fixing the economy to the brave men and women of the armed forces. We should all come together, he says. We should all come together. And at that point in time, I was like, you know, how can you compare fixing the economy, unemployment, healthcare to the armed forces? And what he meant by that is that the armed forces in the Iraqi and Afghan war have met every challenge and defeated each and every challenge. That's what he meant by that. After talking about the American people and comparing them to the armed forces and the challenges that they met, his conversation then goes on. At the 13-minute and 20-second mark, he talks about education. At the 13-minute and 30-second mark, he talks about jobs. At the 13-minute and 45-second mark, he talks about America as a people, which was kind of bothersome, as a people. At the 14-minute and 10-second mark, he talks about serving the veterans of the Iraqi and Afghan war and how he wants to improve their benefits. Well, I don't believe that for a second. I mean, this country has treated their veterans horribly since God knows when. And we all know that's true. And this is a very interesting part. At 14-minute and 40-second part of the speech, he talks about his grandfather being in World War II. He mentions his grandfather. At the 15-minute and 15-second mark, he talks about getting out of Iraq. And then at the 16-minute and 10-second mark, he talks about the 4,400 Americans who have given their lives in Iraq. But again, he did not mention the millions and millions of civilians who paid the ultimate price, who just kind of got in the way. The Iraqi men, women, and children who had died, the innocent bystanders of this war. And then from then on out, it was just pretty much filler and nothing but BS. So from there on out, it was just pretty much a dead conversation. So there you have it in a nutshell. That's what the speech was about. The link will be underneath if you want to watch the entire thing. So, YouTube, have a good day. I'll see you soon.